dance to the music. It's happy hour.
But we go there, okay, yeah. For my papa, no be dangote. But we go there, yeah. I go go.
Thank you, DJ.
I go snack back.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Can you all hear me? Welcome to the very first, Leadership Happy Hour session of 2022. We are so excited to be here. Welcome to all of you. This is going to be a powerful session, like all the sessions we've been running so far. So if you're new here, welcome. If you're a regular, welcome back. You know how we do here. We are so excited to have you back. We're so grateful to have you back. Please drop in the chat where you're from. We would love to know where you're from. Okay, my name is Muriel Teku. I think it's the first time you're seeing me. If you can hear me, let me know. Just wave your hand and let me know if you can hear me. Okay, perfect. So my name is Muriel and I manage the social media accounts for Busara Africa. I know this is your first time seeing me, but yeah. So I'm here with Taaka. Taaka, she's our CEO. She's a leadership development practitioner with over 20 years of experience in leadership, organizational, social development, a certified leadership coach. Welcome, Taaka. We're so excited to have you here. And also, today is our, very first session of Leadership Happy Hour. The topic today is high impact leadership habits to adopt in 2022. So I will give the floor to Taaka. She will introduce the rest of the team and, and we will begin. Okay.
Thank you, Muriel. And lovely to see so many friends and new faces here today. So Muriel has introduced herself, but again, for those who don't know the full team, I think it's wonderful that I also recognize the rest of the Busara team here today. Many of you know Vera, who's been holding the fort many times before. Yeah. So Vera, give away. Vera has now moved on to high, big things. So she just now supports us from behind. So there's Vera. Then we have Lydia, our program manager. Lydia, give away. And then we have our newest addition to the team, who is Apolline, joining us from Paris. There is Apolline, freezing to death. We're sending her warmth from Accra to keep her warm at this time. So that's the team that you have with us. So again, lovely to see you. I'm already seeing in the chat where folks are joining us from. I'm seeing James from Accra. I see Francoise, I saw you right here. I saw Rachel joining us from the UK. Angela from Accra, nice to see you. I don't see you on the thing, but Rabi, I saw you from Nigeria. You're so welcome. Oh, I see Jackie joining us from Kampala. Jackie, lovely to see you. Happy New Year.
And you too, Taaka. Woohoo!
Yeah. Nice. I see Flavia joining us from Brussels. Flavia, lovely to see you. Happy New Year. Yay. I see Eseza Nakato joining us from Boston. Welcome, Eseza.
Thank you.
I'm seeing folks. Idzai, I'd love to know where you're from, Idzai. Let us know. Donna Marie is joining us from the UK. Donna, always lovely to have you. So folks, you can see we have folks from all over. Mabel, all of you, Villas family. I wonder who from the Villas family is there. So all of you are welcome to us. What Muriel said, our first session this year, where we're looking at 5 high impact leadership habits for 2022. And if you're new and you don't want to miss, any more of these happy hours, you don't want to miss any announcements, please do join our subscriber list. Lydia will put that in the chat so that you continue to get information from us. But back to you, Muriel.
Yes, yes, thank you, Taaka. And once again, welcome. We do this every last Friday of the month. So if you're new here, you're going to enjoy it and you're going to come back. Okay. So first of all, I don't know if any of you have, if you have seen our very first video of 2022 on YouTube, we've spoken about habits as well, and we've received so many great feedback. So we decided that for this first session of Leadership Happy Hour, we are going to dive even deeper in the topic of leadership habits. So, Taaka, why this topic? Why this focus on habits? Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Muriel. Habits. And it's interesting when we were thinking about some of the key things that would be appropriate for us to be reflecting on as leaders at the beginning of the year. I think why I landed on habits is because I think, as many of you all know, habits have a significant influence on how you think, act, and feel. There was some research conducted by 2 universities in the US that found that 45% of reported activities in a given day are habitual. In other words, you were doing things unconsciously. Yeah? And I can think of an example. I think one of the things, for instance, that we do quite unconsciously is driving. So I remember an example, and I'm sure this has happened to many of you. I remember some time where at one point I was driving somewhere that was the same route as I normally drop the kids to school. So on the same road. But I was going to a different destination. I wasn't going to drop the kids off. And I'm driving along, and before I could realize, I found myself out, for those of you in Accra, I was on that Legon road, and the kids were going to school in East Legon at the time. And before I realized, I was turning off at Shiasi because I was just essentially driving unconsciously. Yeah? So it's a recognition that so much of what we do is unconscious. Huh? But this is the power of habits, Muriel, and I think this is why I wanted to bring it to this space. Huh? Habits make it easy to do hard things. Huh? So what do I mean by this? Huh? If you're in the habit of doing something, it takes less willpower to do it. Let's give the example of exercising. Huh? There are certain people who are in the habit of exercising, and they just, it's just part of their habit. Each time they just get up, they go for a run, or they go for a walk, or they do that. But for those of us that it's not a habit, each time it's like, oh gosh, I have to, get every single bit of willpower to get the thing done. Yeah. So when you make something habitual, and I'm not saying it's easy, the hard part is to make it a habit. But when you make something habitual, it makes it a lot easier to do in the long run. And ultimately, Muriel, what I've found is that many things we have to do as leaders are hard. So what if we could make them habits? It would make it much easier for us to do these hard things. So that was the idea, Muriel, behind the idea of focusing on habits.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Taaka, because I mean, if it becomes like a second nature, it's like you just naturally do it every single day because it's it's like a part of your routine. So I love that you said that, you don't require any willpower when it becomes a habit. It's just natural to do it. So here we all, the topic is about leadership. So what are high impact leadership habits that a leader should adopt this year, to succeed, at least just to like have a beautiful year? So can you give me like the top 5 leadership habits? Yeah,
sure. And I share with you 5, but I would be very curious when I'm done to hear from others in terms of what are the habits you're finding, you are adopting, or you have had that really make your leadership powerful. But from working with leaders over the years, these are 5 that I have seen that if you can make these things habitual, they go a long way into making your leadership very powerful. So Muriel, let me start with the first.
Okay.
And the first is the habit of reflection and strategic thinking. Now, what do I mean by that? What I found is that for many of us leaders, we're simply doing, going. It's nonstop. We're under so much pressure to deliver. We're under so many demands from so many different directions that we find that we're constantly going without time to pause, stop, and think. And yet, having the time to stop and reflect is almost like sharpening your saw as a leader. And if you don't sharpen your saw as a leader, essentially you become blunt. The added value that you bring to your organization and your team diminishes. So what does this mean in practice? It means, and for each of you, how you stop to reflect and pause will look like different things. It's almost like there's a mini habit that's the foundation of this bigger habit. Some of the things I have done habitually to enable this habit of pausing to reflect are reading, podcasts. In fact, let me say podcasts more than reading. I'd like to become more habitual about reading. We need to learn from Jacqueline Asimwe. Jackie is one who she's got the reading down packed. But listening to podcasts helps me reflect, because as I listen, I'm thinking, what does that mean for my leadership practice? What does that mean in terms of how I support others? So those are examples of things to do. Sometimes speaking to a friend or coach. I see Data Bank is here, but my dear friend Gillian Hammer, when she and I walk, that is very strategic reflection time. I mean, Gillian will ask me questions about our leadership practice that often get me thinking a lot deeper. It moves me from a less superficial space into a much deeper space. I think my key point here is that whatever practice you use that enables you to pause and move from the doing to reflect is what is important to make a habit. Because that habitual practice of strategically thinking and reflecting becomes so key to strengthening your leadership practice. So I would say, Muriel, that would be the first one.
Okay, so it will be the habit of stopping to reflect and thinking almost as if you're sharpening your soul. I love it. I love it. So, so what is the second one?
So the second one is the habit of refilling your tank. Now, last year, I think many of you heard me talking about the coaching program I had that was taking you from exhaustion to replenishment. And this is because the dominant narrative I was hearing from so many leaders is that they are exhausted. And now in January, some people may still have a little bit of energy from Christmas, but I bet you if we had this conversation in March, people will start to say, oh my gosh, it feels like the holidays were 10 years ago. So many leaders are almost like chronically exhausted and depleted, which is why the second habit is so important. Because I think so many of us have seen that when you're exhausted, tired, and cranky, that is not the space from which your best decision-making occurs. When you're exhausted, tired, and cranky, it's so much harder for you to coach others, understand others, listen deeply to what's being said and what's not said. So really this idea of refilling your tank is not just about so that you can feel good, but it's recognizing that when you feel good, when you're at the best, at your best, is when your leadership is at your best. And again, Muriel, underlying this is a bunch of mini habits. Each of us has different ways to refill our tank. And it's ultimately about finding what is your way of refilling your tank and how can you make that habitual. So in case it's about exercising, whether it's about meditating, whether it's about having some quiet time, it's making that such a habit, not an afterthought. When you're so like on empty, then you're like, oh my gosh, my car has stalled, I've fallen sick, I need to make time. But you're constantly, it's almost like, those amazing people, I don't know if any of you are one of those people who they never let their fuel tank go below half tank. I know some of those very organized people who say, hey, half tank, I must refuel my car tank again. It's almost doing the same thing for ourselves emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So that's the second one, the habit of refilling your tank.
I love it, Taka. It's about taking care of yourself, because before you're a leader,
Yes.
you're also a human being. It's very
Yes.
necessary to really, take care of yourself, replenish, and give your best the next day. So I love it. I love it. And I can see new people joining us like right now. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, welcome. If you're new, if you just joined us, it's the Leadership Happy Hour, and we're talking about high impact leadership habits to adopt for 2022. So Taka already shared two habits. So the first one, it was to pause, it was the habit to pause and strategic thinking. And the second one was the habit to refill your tank. So if you can start dropping in the comments, what is resonating with you currently? What are you doing? What are your questions? What are your comments? You can start putting them in the comments, in the chat, and then we'll get back to you as soon as we're done with the 5 habits. Okay.
Nice, nice. Thank you,
So
Muriel. Yes, indeed. Yeah, thank you for encouraging folks to put it in the chat, because these are 5 I've seen, but I'm dying to hear what others are also using. This is a space for sharing. And also big greetings for those of us who are joining us on Facebook Live. Also put your comments on our Facebook page, comment page. Lydia will pick that up and share that into this space. Okay, so my third one. And again, remember, as I said, Muriel, at the beginning, for me, the whole idea of making something a habit is the idea of making a hard thing easier to do. And one of the things I think many of us have found very hard to do is to give open and loving feedback. And that's the third habit, the habit of giving open and loving feedback. Now, why do I say this? I have encountered too many employees who are starved of consistent developmental, candid feedback from their leaders. Because the ones who are struggling, we all know those, I call them the beloveds. Some call them the recalcitrant ones. The ones who give you sleepless nights or give you the gray hair that I currently have. Those ones, it's quite hard sometimes to give them the feedback, because you give them the feedback, they're defensive, they get an attitude, they don't want to listen to it. So we find those ones get starved of the feedback. The high performers get on with it. So you give them the feedback, they adopt. So this is the habit of giving open, candid, and remember I said loving, because I think some of us are very good at giving. We have the habit of giving criticism very quickly, but it's about giving loving developmental feedback, even with those who keep us awake at night. And it's so important to have this as a habit, because too often what most of us do is we delay. You know how it is. You give them feedback, they're not responding, you're like, okay, I will leave it until the performance appraisal. And then you give it to them, well, and then they're like, oh, what happened? You never told me about this. So the whole idea of regularly giving this feedback is that you're constantly coaching your direct reports to performance, to perform better, or you're coaching them out of the door, one of the two, but at least you're regularly giving that feedback. So that's the second one. Jackie says in the chat, the feedback thing, ouch, yeah. It's often, particularly for those who are struggling, it's easy with the high performance, but we all know it. With those who are struggling, who have an attitude, those beloveds that we lead, we need to get the habit of constantly leaning in, staying with them, to constantly give them feedback. So that's the second.
that's the
Should I jump
third.
into the fourth? Oh, that's the third. Sorry. Thank you.
Yes,
I'm glad you
definitely.
picked it up.
Yeah. So this is really good. I feel like this is what makes us leader, because we also have to teach. It's not just like leading. It's just we have to help people become better at what they do. So even if it's not nice, we can't just like shut them down and then decide to do it ourselves. We teach them how to do it better the next time. So I love it. Giving open and loving feedback. Fourth habit.
Okay, fourth one is the fourth habit is the habit of conscious listening. Now, I emphasize that because you could see the first two were very much on self. These second two are on the others. So the feedback is about how you develop others. And this fourth one is very much about how you lead others effectively. And I focus on listening because I think many of you have heard me say that as leaders, our most important communication skill is not the ability to speak. It's not the ability to be so articulate, to have just the right thing to say at the right moment. It's our ability to listen and to really listen at a deep level. I think that's what I'm calling conscious living. And for some of us, particularly for some of us, people like Taaka, Awori, who love to talk a lot. For some of us, stopping, just, not talking so that we can listen is hard. Because particularly around power dynamics, because we are leaders, people are always listening to us. As soon as we open our mouth, there are people listening to us. So I think we really need to have that discipline, that habit of recognizing that even though I have been given the airtime, I will not use all this airtime to talk. I will also use this airtime to really listen. And it's listening at different levels. So conscious listening first is listening to yourself. Listening to yourself in terms of listening to that quiet, still voice within. Some of us have our inner critic is shouting so loudly in our heads, we can't hear that quiet inner voice of instinct that encourages us. It's listening to our bodies as well, to say, what are our bodies telling us? Our bodies telling us it's time to move. Are our bodies telling us that this person, I need to move away from this situation. It's so toxic. I can feel it in my neck. I need to let go. There's too much resistance. So it's first listening to self. Then it's listening to others naturally, listening for what's being said, what's not being said. And then, and this is the third level for me, it's listening in the bigger space, listening to your environment, paying attention to the dynamics around you, not just being so focused on your own trouble and your own team, but also having a sense of that wider space around you. So listening to me is a very big thing. And maybe Muriel, I'll say this final thing about listening. Because listening takes airtime, we need to be choiceful and intentional about what and who we are listening to. Too many times I have felt I am listening to those who are not speaking for my highest good. I am listening to information or news that is not helping me think deeply, positively, progressively, more critically. So it's not just about listening to everything. And I imagine how so many of us spend our time, Muriel, on this thing, particularly on WhatsApp, listening to a lot of nonsense on WhatsApp. Every video that someone puts on the chat, there you are listening to it. And really I like surely, as we say in Uganda. So I think it's also, yes, listen consciously, but the consciously implies that being quite thoughtful about what you're listening to. And I'm loving the fact I'm seeing in the chat, Clara saying it's something she's working on. Rabbi is also talking about that being a challenge, same thing with Jillian. So yes, I can see this is resonating, this aspect of, so that would have been my fourth one, listening.
Oh, I love it. I love that we have to listen at 3 levels. We have to listen to ourselves, we have to listen to others, and then we have to listen to our environment, our organization, what is happening in the industry. I love it. So yes, so in the chat, definitely. Okay, we have James saying, I can't agree more. Yes. Okay, so our final habits, Taaka. I'm very excited about the 5th one.
Yes, that final one. And people, we're coming to you, so please prepare. We're coming to now.
Prepare.
Once I've shared my final one, these are just the 5 I've seen. I'm dying to hear from you all. What are some of the ones you've been practicing? All right, so my 5th one is the habit of being courageous. And I had another one planned, but when I thought about this thing about courage, I was just like, that's it. This is something I really want to share. This is my message. And what is this? What do I mean by the habit of being courageous? I feel like the leadership that's required now in 2022 is a leadership that's going to invite all of us to go beyond our comfort zones. It's inviting us to do more, be more. And I don't, when I say do more, I don't mean now again, adding more things to your to-do list. Sometimes it is the courage to say no. Sometimes it's the courage to say, no, I can't do this. No, not now. Let me do it at another time. Sometimes it's the courage to say, this is not a right fit for me, that I need to walk away and find something that resonates more with me. It's the courage to say, you are not a right fit for this team. We need to support you to move to another team or another organization. So increasingly, what I'm finding is that many of us are driven by the habit of fear. Fear drives our thinking. So increasingly, we think habitual, fearful thoughts. Fear limits our actions because we're constantly like, oh, if I do this, what if, what if, what if, what if? So you can literally see so much of the greatness in so many of us is being hindered, covered by these constant limitations driven by fear, this habit of fear. But what if there was a habit of courage? Then I feel for so many of us, the ability to step out in our courage, we would also be giving permission to others to also live from a space of fearlessness, space of courage, but it needs to be a habit. Because moving out of your comfort zone is not an easy thing to do. And habits are about making hard things easy. Initially, to get the willpower to do it is difficult, but when you're constantly, so in this case, having the habit of being courageous and moving out of your comfort zone means you gain the habit, you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So that's my last one, Muriel. And I can't wait to hear what others are adopting as their habits.
Yes. Wow.
I'm seeing
Well,
some good
thank
stuff
you
in the
for
chat
that.
as
This
well.
is good. This is really good. I mean, nothing good is achieved in your comfort zone, like literally. So let me try and recap all of this. So we have 5 habits. You shared 5 habits. So the first one was the habit of reflection and strategic thinking. The second one was the habit of refilling your tank. Third habit was the habit of giving open and loving feedback. Fourth habit was the habit of conscious listening. And fifth habit is the habit of being courageous. So this is amazing, Taaka. Thank you so much. So definitely, there's definitely a lot of different habits, but those are our high top 5. And we would love to hear what you guys are doing this year to be impactful leaders. Which of these habits are resonating with you? Which one do you want to implement and then learn a bit more, do better at that? And then what are you doing yourself? We would love to know what you're doing yourself this year to be an impactful leader. So I open the
Yay.
floor. Yes.
Jillian has her hand up. Jillian.
Hi, Taaka. How are you?
Oh, good, Jillian. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm actually driving as I'm listening, but I couldn't miss it, so I had to join. But to Muriel's question, one of the ones that I have found of the ones you shared that really resonates with me is just that habit of, the whole thing of being more self-aware and listening more to your body, to your surroundings, everything. And particularly during this COVID time when many of us are working from home and you find that, levels of depression have gone up, levels of anxiety have gone up, and all of those things, is really, really important for us to make the habit of just listening to our bodies. And if we need help, not being afraid to reach out and talk to someone and just find a way to download and de-stress. But the other habit I would add, if I could add a 6th one, would be just in the area of learning and just constantly exposing yourself to information so that you can draw from it when the time comes. I think not enough leaders open themselves up and make it a habit to learn constantly. And it's not just about training courses that are paid. It's reading, it's your podcasts that you listen to. Sometimes it's just conversations with certain people. So thought I would share. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jillian. Oh, I love it. I mean, for
Fantastic.
me, if I had to share, for me, especially, it was the habit of refilling your tank. That was very important for me because, of course, sometimes we can go, like you say, and we forget to sit down and really take care of ourselves. And and that's when you hit burnout. You become
Yeah.
so tired, and there's no fresh ideas. You're like lacking at, results are not coming as fast as they used to come. So that's very important. One of the very first thing I'll do this year. And I saw
Nice.
Francoise has her.
Do
Go
it.
ahead, Francoise.
Hi, thanks, Muriel, and thanks, Taaka, for sharing those great habits. I have to say, for me, the habit of strategic thinking is my favorite. And for me, it's silence, finding silence, which is the hardest thing to do, I think, when you're a leader and when you have kids. But I would totally agree with learning. And I think for me, one that I've learned in the past year is also trusting myself a habit, like finding a way to remember the things that I'm already good at, and finding a way of, in a habitual way, like trusting myself, because most of the time I will agonize over a decision and it will be exactly my first thought. So I will think about all the time. I wish I had kept doing something else. So yeah, that would be the one I would add to the list. Thank you.
I love that.
Love
Oh,
it.
I absolutely love it. Muriel, if I may, there are two things that Francois said that have really spoken to me. One is the aspect of silence. I really feel we're living in noisier times. And particularly, I don't know, but for those of you who are on the continent, I don't know what it's like if you're in Brussels or in Paris or what, but I feel like if I look at Accra, I feel Accra is increasingly more noisy. You walk into a shop, there's noise blaring. In your home, there's, churches have their things going to, there's constant noise. You get into an Uber, so it's almost finding that silence where we can actually hear ourselves think, and particularly listen to that quiet voice within, I think is so powerful. So that really resonated with me. And Francois' second point about this questioning of ourselves. And I just love that, being able to trust yourself as a key habit, I just think is also so powerful. I absolutely love that. And I'm seeing some amazing things in the chat too.
Amazing comments.
Yeah, I've seen Jackie's point. I love that. Jackie is saying, one of my I am statements is I am faith-filled. I am a faith-filled, bold, risk-taking leader. I will never insult God with small thinking and safe living. Wow. Powerful, Jackie. Powerful, Jackie. We should have had you come on to actually say that one. Nice, nice, nice. We've also seen, I want to say, is it Elzabe? Have I pronounced it right? Some of you feel free to unmute and share. Sometimes it's just so powerful.
Yes,
come on in,
yes.
my sister.
You pronounce my name correctly, so you can, it's fine.
Thank you for your comment. Struggling with self-care. I think all of this, I learned a new view in the week, building around myself. I'm not building myself around things. Nice one. Nice. Thank you. Hasia, I'm sure joining us from Nigeria. Come on in, my sister. You have the floor.
Hi, Taaka. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Muriel.
Hello.
I really like the presentation. And the part I like most is about the habit of refilling my tank. I really like that part because I used to be so much overwhelmed by my schedule, by trying to meet up with the deadlines, by trying to perform at my best, that I used to forget about taking that me time that is really necessary for me to refill my tank. So I think for this year, 2022, the habit I'm going to try to develop is to refill my tank. I really like the presentation. I agree with Muriel.
Thank you.
Nice. Nice. Where are you joining us from, Hasia?
Yes.
I am joining from Nigeria. From Nigeria.
Okay, that's right. Yes, from Nigeria.
Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay, yes, indeed. Fantastic.
Welcome.
Nice.
Yes.
You know, it says I was asking just
We have a
before Janet
question.
comes in. Yeah. She's asking, what are some of the ways we can refill our tanks? Oh, fantastic. It'll be great to hear from folks how they are refilling their tanks. And let's hear some of the concrete examples from folks, because it will vary for each person. Some people take super, people take V-Power, some people take diesel, some take water. So let us hear what you're pouring to refill your tanks. But Janet,
for me,
Janet, go ahead, Hasia. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, the method I'm going to use to refill my tank is just to try to get a long time. So I will allow the kids to be away. I will just hide inside my room, make everywhere just quiet, just run away from all the noise around me. I will just lie down, relax. So then I will just think about myself. Then after some time, maybe I may get a nap. I will just enjoy sleeping without thinking about any other trouble. I will just leave everything aside. Then I will think about myself, what I like, what I would like to do in life, how I can make myself grow better, the type of foods I like, because I used to even forget about such kind of things. Sometimes I would just be contented with whatever kind of food I would just find across my way. I just even used to forget about which type of food I like, because I'm so busy. Whatever I would get, I would just eat and just find my way. So I would just try to think about all such kind of different foods that I may like, or maybe the different places I may like to visit in the world or something like that. So I think that is what I would try to do. I would just run away from all the trouble. I will put the job aside, the kids aside, the society aside. Then I would just focus on myself.
Nice, nice. Thank you.
Wow, that's amazing. Joy in the small things. She says, sleep,
Yes,
eat, think about myself. That's it.
yes, just myself.
I think we have.
I would try to be selfish. I'm going to be selfish for some hours. I would just think of myself. Yes.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. I think we have Asia and Dee Marie. Hasia,
I think Janet had her hand. Janet, did you? Asia just finished. Okay. So now it's Janet. Yes, yeah. So Janet, do you want us to come in? And then Donna Marie. And then we have Flavia's question in the chat. But Janet, why don't you come on in?
Thank you. I just wanted to say, actually, a lot of what you said, Taaka, really resonates, especially the idea of reflection. I find I learn a lot from just reflecting on things that have happened, or a session, or, you know, a podcast, as you say. I found that really nice, and actually one of the ways of refilling myself. And in a space where I've been in the last 6 months or so, where I'm not in a structured organization, I'm working on my own, I found this so critical. And I think consultants, if consultants need anything, is actually the growth that comes from finding ways to refill yourself, because you're not, and I think working from home has almost made everybody in that space. So, you know, you can't depend on the fact that you're meeting people. So that is so important. But very connected to the idea of habits, again, in the space of working on yourself. And I think in that spirit of creating habits, I found creating a structure is so important when you're in that open space. You know, when you know, this is my self time, this is my golfing time, or this is my reading time, this is, you know, just the things that you value, the things that you feel are important. That structure I found is helping me get the habits that I want to become part of me, you know, because sometimes we are carried by an organization, but when you are not in an organization, how do you still become yourself? How do you continue to grow? How do you keep habits that are really helpful? So the structuring, I've found it a very great way of creating the habits that I really want to keep. But lastly, self-awareness. I find sometimes as leaders, we are not aware about the power we have, the environment we are in, who is around me, what's going on in their life. And self-awareness makes you aware who wants to speak, who could be in trouble around me. So, or what's just going on around me. So, or how do I come across? So being self-aware is such a great, quality in each one of us who are striving to become better leaders. Thank you. And great session.
Thank you, Janet. Fantastic.
Thank you for sharing. I think Françoise puts in the comments, she says, I refill my tank by taking small solo retreats, 1 to 2 per year. I go away for 5 to 7 days. Okay. No work, no family, no friends, no social media, only books, a notebook, and instrumental music. All my best ideas have come from those times. I love it.
Wow, wow. Muriel, if I may come in, and then I know we have a question from Flavia, and I noticed Donna Marie's hand is up. But there's something that has really struck me about both what Hasia was saying and also this amazing, this retreat that Françoise had in this aspect of taking care of self. If you notice, Hasia said this one word. She said, I will be selfish and close the door. And I think there's something huge about, particularly often I find as women, and sometimes the way we're socialized, but they're not only women on this call, but also as leaders. And the idea that our very raison d'etre is to be there for others, 100%, 24/7, nonstop. So that the ability to, as Hasia was saying, close the door and say, people, no kids, this is my time, or this amazing thing that Françoise does. It's the ability to work on our mindset that says that that's somehow selfish, that somehow you shouldn't be doing this thing. So I think that changing of mindset enables us to do what I find, these are very courageous and just really powerful things to do. And then finally, I want to pick up on something and I'll get back, Flavia's question. In some ways, I think Janet was starting to answer it. If you go back, Flavia in the chat was asking, let me go back to it. She says, I have a question about sticking to habits. Forming a habit is one thing, but sticking to it when everything is a rat race is hard. So we all know that, we know the truth of that. Let's raise our hands. How many of us have said we're going to exercise this month? How many of us have said we're going to do intermittent fasting this month? We're all things that when the wahala starts, the pressure starts, boom, they're gone. But I think the answer to sustaining a habit is partly what Janet said around structure. In coaching, we call it the scaffolding you put to support you. So structure, knowing Tuesdays and Thursdays, Jillian and I walk. That is the schedule. We've done it for 1 year so that when we don't, we feel like, but shouldn't we walk? Shouldn't we walk? The other two, an accountability partner. So if I don't call Jillian, Jillian will call me. And then it's like, if I don't go, I've let her down when she is ready. So I think trying to have those folks that help you until it really sticks and is part of your DNA. They say it takes sometimes between 15 to 66 days to form a habit. There's different researchers on the amount of days it takes to stick. But you will know, and it's saying that when you fall off the thing and you drop the habit, you can pick it up again much easier. So you don't beat up on yourself that you haven't done it. When you start again, it will be much easier. So I just thought I would respond to those things. I see, sorry, Donna Marie. Yeah.
Donna Marie, go ahead and ask your question, Donna Marie.
No, I just wanted to say that in terms of habits, I think for me, be the listening, and as in really listening, actively listening. And just to go back earlier, Taaka mentioned noise, as in Accra being very noisy, but then in Europe, you know, potentially it's a lot quieter. And I'll link that up. I'll tell you why. Obviously, with the pandemic and being under lockdown, it's been extremely difficult. And what I've found is when I've reached out to friends or they've reached out, I've got into the habit of really listening, if that makes sense, because we've all got a certain element of pride. There are very few of us who are able to ask for help when we really need it. But when you have somebody call you and you really listen to what they're saying, you know, instead of butting in, you just listen to them. At some point you realize potentially there's a cry for help, or there's a cry for support, and I must admit, throughout the pandemic, it sort of got me thinking, Accra being noisy, or cities in Africa being extremely noisy, you're still kind of connected to the outside world. Whereas over here, when it's quiet, you feel completely disconnected. I hope I'm making sense.
Absolutely.
You understand what I mean?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. And so when somebody reaches out and you really listen, yes, they're calling to see how you are, but they're calling because they need that connection, you know. And for me, this actively listening thing, I mean, obviously I'm in HR, I do listen when I talk to people, but this pandemic period has really sort of ramped it up for me. And you're right, Taaka, those of us who like to talk a lot, there are times where that inner voice says, shut up. Just for once, shut up and listen to what this individual is saying. It's a hard habit to break, but once you start getting into the habit of doing it, there's a lot that is revealed, and it makes one really think. So that was just my bit. So for me, it's the listening bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
I really love that. Muriel, you know what I think what I'm taking from what Donna's bringing out is there's this thing about the silence, and then the silence that comes from deep loneliness, which can be tough.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's about saying that connection still is so important. And being able to listen as a way of enabling that connection, particularly as we go through a period post-pandemic and during pandemic, where so many people are feeling quite disconnected from others. I think that's quite powerful. Nice. Esesa, I hope you're seeing there's lots of examples in the chat. I think this came from a powerful question from Esesa, who was asking, how are people refilling their tank? So I'm seeing Lord has also just put something in there. More strategic networking. Oh, I like that. Look at his quote. I've come to realize that your network is your net worth. Nice, powerful. Thank you, Lord. Powerful. Nice. So folks, keep on coming. If anyone, I wonder if there's someone who we've not, I really like Mercy's thing.
Mercy, yeah.
Book club, huh?
Yep.
Nice. I wonder if there are things on Facebook Live that we are, any folks, any comments there? And I wonder, Kathleen, would you like to, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lydia. Facebook Live?
Not yet, please. Not yet, please.
Esesa, come on in, and then after maybe I'll invite Kathleen, who's
Esesa.
here with me in the studio in airport to join in. But Esesa has another question, and then I'll invite Kathleen. Esesa, jump on in.
Thank you. I was actually going to type it, but then I realized it was a lot longer than I expected. And so my question is, it can be kind of difficult to incorporate. It's just going off of the question that was earlier, where someone was asking, how do you stick to a habit? And my issue, I think, is that it's difficult to incorporate a large amount of habits into your daily routine or your ritual per se, all at once. And I think a lot of the time, like for me personally, when I'll set New Year's resolutions, I'll say, okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then I end up doing like maybe 5 on day 1, 4 on day 2, 3 on day 3, 2. And then it just kind of trickles down from there. And I'm just wondering what's a good way to build these habits into my routine and make sure that they stick and not go anywhere.
I think you're spot on. There's one thing that you're spot on about, which is the first is, as much as so many things. Were you about to join us? as much as there's so many things in our daily lives that are habitual, I think you're spot on in terms of our ability to take on so many new habits at the same time. And so what I really hear you saying, Eseza, and I think there's an answer behind your question, which is indeed that as you adopt new habits, even as I share all five, I share 5 of them, one may not think I'm going to adopt all 5 at the same time. But it's rather about saying, what is the one I can focus on now and ensure that I have structure, an accountability partner, I have small wins to really sustain it along the way. Huh? I think that is something I would definitely take away from your question about start small before adding them all in at the same time. Huh? But others can come in with their thoughts. Huh?
Because I remember I have a friend who she really loves fitness, you know, working out and all. But then she will, when she works out, she will work out for like a whole 30 minutes and an hour and get so tired that she won't do it the next day. She won't do it the day after. So her goal of working out for 4 days a week ended up becoming like a day a week or 2 days a week. So I think I remember her telling me that what she did was breaking it down to working out 10 minutes or 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes every single day. So it became like her body got used to just like, if she doesn't move today, she feels weird. But it was just 10 minutes a day until it became a situation where she wanted more. Her body felt like it was ready for more. So I feel like it just has to be, you have to get to a point where you break it down to really the smallest, yeah. And then you become used to it, and then you can increase to like the next level, you know.
Nice. I think many of you know the book Habits. I think it's called Habit by, I'm going to get his name, but he starts out the book where he talks about how the way he developed his habit of exercise was by doing 1 push-up a day. Because he said many times the hardest thing about a habit is starting. So he encourages atomic habits. Yes, thank you, Francoise whispered to me. It's Atomic Habits. So that's the book. I would say really interesting ideas for those of you who would like to learn more, an interesting perspective on how you build habits. That's a wonderful read. Atomic Habits is the name of the book. We can get the full title in the chat. But he indeed, almost the same thing you're saying, Muriel, start small, because you know, the same thing where people will say, get all, and also set yourself up for success. You know, get all your exercise clothes laid out. If it's about eating well, get all the ingredients right, those kinds of things, so that you are increasing your likelihood to sustain it. Yeah. Okay. Kathleen, did you want to come in? Muriel, can I bring in Kathleen to hear what some of her?
Absolutely.
Hi, Taaka. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Taaka. Yeah, this has been quite interesting. And a couple of your things that really resonated was I call it refilling of your tank. Yeah, not just filling it, but refilling it. Because the tank is depleted, and sometimes you are 3/4 or you're at half, and you need to refill it. So some of the ways of doing that is, again, a lot of the things, sit back, reflecting. But for myself, one of the habits that I really have to cultivate is the habit of suspending judgment. I find myself being highly judgmental. And again, I don't mean that in a mean or horrible way, but I approach, again, I'm old enough, all of that. I work with fairly young people. So I find myself thinking, this is so self-evident. How don't you get it? But many times I catch myself and say, Kathleen, from a 56-year-old perspective, this is self-evident. Maybe from a 30-year-old's perspective, it's not that self-evident. So suspending judgment, and again, Taaka, what you said about giving open and loving feedback. I do tend to give feedback, but again, I am a bit impatient in my giving of the feedback sometimes, which might be counterproductive. So again, I tend to, again, do a lot of self-evaluation, self-reflection and all of that. So I've noticed some of those things. And for this year, I've told myself, I really need to, like I said, suspend judgment a bit, try to put myself in their shoes. They don't have the advantage of my education, my exposure, this, that, and the other. So suspend some of that judgment and just be a little more loving in the motivation behind and again, I'm a very focused person. Most of the time I know exactly what I want. So I probably kind of intimidate them a bit. So as a leader of people, maybe a thing is to just, like I said, listen to them, listen very consciously, elicit before I jump in with my true knownness, as we say in Ghana. So that's my take on all of it. But this is very useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, fantastic.
So I've just shared the book in the chat, so you can check it out if you would like to, you know, purchase it or like find it. I've never read this book, but it sounds interesting. I will.
Nice. Muriel, I know we're coming to the top of the hour and we need to wind up, but I just really want to emphasize something that Kathleen has said about judgment. I think I've seen for many of us leaders what can get in the way of our ability to coach and mentor others is the habit of judging people so harshly. So I think it really resonates with me what Kathleen is saying. And I think that, you know, in coach training, we go through this whole thing of learning to have an open mind with whole judgment, but it's not an easy thing to do. So I thank you, Kathleen, for sharing that. I think that's a key one. Yeah. Oh, nice. All right. So we've come to the top of the hour. I love Francois's point in the chat as well, Muriel.
Yes. So she says, I think the essence of leadership is very grounded and proactive, but the practice of it can be so hectic and reactive. So you might know what habits to form, but to get there, you need to dodge all sorts of requests on your attention. So I guess my 2022 habits will have to be about cutting off the noise. Love it.
Yeah, nice, powerful. Oh, this has been amazing. You all have been amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for coming. And as I said at the beginning of the session, we do this every last Friday of the month. So our next Leadership Happy Hour session is on February 25th. Same time, 4 p.m. GMT. So I don't know, I will give you guys a minute to put that in your calendar so you don't have to miss it. Go ahead and put that in your calendar so you can get back here on the 25th of February and join us for an amazing session again. So also Lydia, I know Lydia has put in the chat. Lydia, if you can maybe put it again in the chat, the link to join our subscriber list. You know, we have like a tribe of amazing leaders, and we do not spam. We send you like every once in a month leadership tips that are very useful. They're going to help you and guide you to become the best leader you would want to follow. So please click on the link in the, I think Lydia just put the link. I will give you a minute to click on the link and join our tribe of amazing leaders.
Nice. Can we do our group photo now? Our final thing before you go, folks.
So this is like, you know, a thing of Busara Africa. So just put your camera on and then we'll do a nice picture.
I know people are busy fixing their hair. I can see you all.
Everybody's like,
yes. Are you all looking this? It's just for 1 second. You all look before. You see now I'm seeing all these people. Isaac, I can't see you. Oh, I see Dora. Ooh. Grace, where are you? Nice. Okay, so
big smile.
Lydia will guide us.
Ready?
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you all. We'll see you all next
month. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining.
Wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.